The first case study that we're going to enjoy together today is in the name of Claire and Nick. So what I'm going to do first of all is, I'm going to pop on in, say hello because I can do, and take you through this case study of Claire and Nick. Now, as always with CeMAP 3, you get 20 minutes, thereabouts, 10 minutes to digest the case study and 10 minutes to do the 10 questions. That's definitely the way to handle it. So let's dive in and take a look at Claire and Nick, see what they're all about, shall we? So let's give us our first bit of information, and I'll pop on down the bottom so you can see it. Remember, you need to digest it, so let's get into this and start questioning it as well. Claire started her 25-year variable rate mortgage, interest only, 10 years ago using a unit-linked endowment policy as the repayment vehicle, which is assigned to the lender. The current rate of interest is 6.4%. That's about right, isn't it, for a variable rate? The loan amount was more than covered by her salary at the time of 37. So a bit old-fashioned, some of that information, actually. Who has a variable rate for 10 years? Nobody. Who has an endowment, a unit-linked endowment policy? Nobody, but Claire does. And of course, the book does test you on those things. So not much more to say about that, really, apart from she's had an interest-only mortgage. It's a unit-linked endowment policy. It's probably on a shortfall because that's how these questions tend to go. So next bit of information for you. Since her redundancy 2 months ago, she's been unable to find work, which is pretty depressing that for her. Claire is now 2 months in arrears and has no insurance policy on which to claim, so she hasn't got any MPPI or anything like that, redundancy insurance. Although she did submit a claim for SME, support for mortgage interest, as soon as she went into arrears. That's important. Now, she went into arrears 2 months ago. Let's have a look. She's 2 months in arrears. So there's going to be a question in this case study about how long does she have to wait. And the current waiting period is 3 months, isn't it, from claiming your SME and getting it. So that's probably going to be a question for her. No more questions coming up, I can't see. So back onto the third paragraph then, and I'll come out for a second then. Let's pop up to the top. The 10-year review of her endowment policy shows a projected maturity value of 65 against the loan amount of 75. That's interesting. Unit-linked endowment policies, in fact any unit-linked type regular premium policy, always had reviews where they stopped every 5, 10, 15 years just to see if the thing was on target to do what it was supposed to do. And this one's had its 10-year review and it's not on target. The return it's receiving each year is not what they expected it to be, and therefore she's not going to get the amount of money at the end of the term to pay off the loan that she needs. So she's on a shortfall. And again, this happened way back in the early noughties mostly, where people often converted part of their mortgage to a repayment basis because they were short of a certain amount. Some people would extend their endowment or increase the premium, which you can do on a unit link, so you can't do that on a with profits. So they're the options that people had. Now, the insurance company has recommended an increase to her monthly premiums of £90. There you go. So she can pay more money into the endowment, which is fine, but it's a bit like throwing good money after bad, isn't it? You know, not a lot of people who are upset about on a shortfall because they never thought they were going to get a shortfall. Not many people wanted to pay more money at it, but she could do that, and that would increase her sum assured, effectively increase the value of the policy. But Claire doesn't want to do this and is looking for an alternative. There you go. She's thinking aloud on what my thinking is. The fact is you're looking at a repayment mortgage or a part and part here, because the unit-linked endowment will secure 65. So she's got a mortgage of 75, so she's got a 10,000 shortfall. So you could turn 10 grand of that mortgage into repayment, and 65,000 is interest only. That would probably be the right thing to do. I bet you there's a question on that one. See what you're doing? You're preempting it as you go along. So let's go on to our next bit of information. I've got more for you. There's more. Her boyfriend Nick has returned from voluntary service overseas. Good for him. And will be moving in with her. They're planning to get married when their joint financial situation improves. Not sure what that means, but maybe she gets a job and things. In the meantime, Nick will help pay the household bills and is anxious to help Claire to clear the mortgage arrears. Good for you, Nick, and so you should if you're moving in. You need to help out. He's probably still working. Doesn't say that he doesn't have a job. He's just returned from overseas voluntary service, so he's probably got some sort of job, but we'll see. So what's happening here? Well, Claire owns the house. She has the mortgage. Nick's just moved in. Nothing wrong with that. It's not illegal to do that. But if the lender finds out that Nick's living there and he's over 18, he may well get an overriding interest in the property. In other words, if they have to repossess, they can repossess Claire, but they won't be able to repossess Nick if he has an overriding interest to stay in the home. But as long as the lender doesn't get wink of this, then it doesn't matter. They can still repossess the property. But we'll see what else is going on, shall we? Next paragraph, here we go. Let's just pop up. Let's get rid of me for a second. Claire would like Nick to be added to the mortgage deed. Okay, that changes everything. And he has agreed to this. Well, so he should. But adding him to the mortgage deed is fine. But of course, it's not as though he's going to be on the house either. So that could be an issue. Claire owns the house, but putting him on the mortgage deed might cause a problem or two because the lender, of course, will want to say yes or no to that. Okay, anyway, the couple have also discussed renting their spare room to a lodger, which the lender has provisionally indicated it may permit. So they now know about Nick, so the lender's starting to get a little bit nervous because they know he's in the house. They'll want to secure that overriding interest, won't they? They'll want to get a consent to mortgage form completed at some point. These forms are completed by anybody over the age of 18, or is going to turn 18, in order to allow the bank, the building society, to have precedence over the house if on a repossession. Anyway, the lodger's a good idea. She can earn a good bit of money on that, tax-free, $7,500 at last count. Nick's starting a new job. Good. So he's on a salary of $35,000. His employer offers no benefits package. So there might be some life assurance questions here. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? Nick's got some money. He can help pay the mortgage. If they add him to the mortgage deed, I'm sure the lender will allow that. I mean, adding somebody onto a mortgage deed is good news all round, because they're going to get somebody else there earning to help pay the mortgage payments. It's only a small mortgage at the end of the day, isn't it? What is it, $75,000? But they'll probably want to go through some routines, check his credit, check his income, and then add him to the mortgage as a transfer of equity. That's quite a simple thing to do. Last paragraph for you. Claire and Nick have arranged an appointment with Jerry, an advisor at their lender. They don't have many of those anymore, do they? To discuss their situation. Claire's had her house valued by the local estate agent, who has stated that if sold, the property should be put on the market for $150,000. Okay, it's an estate agency valuation, which is usually pretty good. It's not a mortgage valuation for mortgage purposes, but and they're quite optimistic, aren't they, estate agents often with their valuations. But on a mortgage of 75, house of 150 is great value. I mean, that's a 50% loan to value, so the lender should be well pleased with all of this. But obviously 2 months in arrears needs to be sorted out as soon as possible. So let's get into our questions then. Let's see what we've got, shall we, on our questions. Let's go to question number 1, and we'll work through these fairly quickly now, because we've probably done a lot of the work already. That's the point about CeMAP 3. Okay, first question for you. Here's the page of questions. Let's zoom in for you. Here we go. Which potential solution to Claire's arrears situation would be the most appropriate? Okay, so we've got a number of options here. Let's keep or eliminate, shall we? Surrender the endowment policy. Well, I wouldn't be doing that because you wouldn't get much back for it. B, suspend monthly mortgage payments. Well, that's a bit daft because you'll get more into arrears. C, clear the debt over a set period. Well, that's fair enough, but she's still got the arrears. She's got to pay those arrears off. She could extend time, I suppose, or D, extend the mortgage term. Well, that's not going to work either, is it? Because it's an interest-only mortgage. So the best option there is C, clear the debt over a set period. So probably capitalise the arrears and get it paid off over the next 15, 20 years would be the best way of handling that. It's only 2 months. Or she could come up with the money and pay it off. So C is the only answer there, isn't it? Okay. Number 2. I knew this was going to be a question. What is Claire's situation regarding the receipt of SME, support for mortgage interest? And they've got all sorts of options here about 50% here, 10% there. But the answer is quite clearly D. No interest would be payable for approximately another 5 weeks. She's already been claiming for 2 months. She's got a claim for 3 months in total before she gets her money, or the lender gets the money direct. So another month, well, approximately 5 weeks is the same as a month, isn't it? So D is the only answer really that's going to be correct there, which is pretty straightforward. Question number 3. Which of the following would be covered under Clare's claim for support for mortgage interest? This is an interesting question because it's asking you about what is the government going to pay with the SME claim. And there's a few options there. We'll go through those in a second. But the pure fact is that the government, first of all, it's not a welfare benefit anymore. It's a loan. It's a secured loan, which they'll make payments subject to certain amounts, maximums and things. They'll make payments at their rate of interest, not yours. They've got a standard one you see they use. And they'll make those payments, but it's only geared towards the interest on your mortgage. It doesn't cover anything else, because that's the bare minimum, you see. And then whatever they pay, they accrue as a loan, and then you've got to pay that back at some point in the future, usually when you sell the house. So you've got loads of options there. You've got which of the following would be covered under Clare's claim for support for mortgage interest. You've got A, mortgage interest, which looks good. You've got B, mortgage interest plus endowment premiums, which doesn't cover your endowment premiums. Mortgage interest plus endowment premiums plus arrears, well, it doesn't cover your arrears either. It's just the normal monthly payment based on your capital outstanding, not the arrears, at their set standard rate of interest. D is mortgage interest plus endowment premiums plus arrears plus buildings insurance. They're piling it on there. No, A is the only answer there that's correct, and it is. It's just mortgage interest only. Okay, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay, what is likely to be required from their lender if Clare goes ahead with her intention to occupy the spare room with a lodger? Okay, we knew this was going to come up. The lodger's fine as far as the tax man's concerned. It's fine. Got to $7,500 tax free. You've got to follow some conditions for that, but that's fine. But this is asking about what the lender would require, and they obviously know about this now, so they're going to be worried about the lender. The lender's going to be worried about having the lodger having some overriding interest. So that's probably one of the answers, and I can see it already. B, a signed consent to mortgage form. They'd want one of those completed for the lodger, who's probably over 18. Don't get many under 18 lodgers, do you? So B, a signed consent to mortgage form, is what they would need to avoid the issue of them repossessing, kicking Clare out, and the boyfriend Nick, maybe, if he's on the mortgage deed. But then the lodger refuses to move, and they'll not be able to get rid of him or her, unless, of course, the consent to mortgage has been completed, which overrides their interests. Interesting. That's easy enough, isn't it? Because we looked at the case study earlier. Let's go on to our next batch of questions then for you. Number 5, here we are. Before Nick is added to the mortgage deed, he should be made aware that he... Okay. So, again, he's going to be added to the mortgage deed. So, got a few options here. We need to look at these. Is it A, he must sign a consent to mortgage form? Well, he won't do. If he's on the mortgage deed, he's no longer somebody in the house, not on the mortgage deed. He's on the mortgage now, so the lender doesn't worry about it anymore because they'll repossess him, B, will be subject to the normal status inquiries before the legal procedure is carried out. That looks good. They've got to do some credit checks and all sorts of things, normal procedures before the legal procedure is carried out. C, loses rights under the Family Law Act 1996, that's just a red herring. Or D, must also be added to the endowment policy. He doesn't need to be added to the endowment policy. In fact, it's very rare. Would you get anybody added to an endowment policy? It doesn't always happen. So the only answer there to number 5 is B, normal legal inquiries, status inquiries. That's easy, isn't it? Number 6, with regards to the couple's proposals for the spare room, Jerry, their advisor, should point out that. Okay, the spare room, if you can remember, was the lodger, wasn't it? But let's see what options we've got. So with regards to the couple's proposals for the spare room, Jerry, the financial advisor, points out A, any occupant should undergo standard status inquiries. Well, no, just because the lodger doesn't have to have their rent checked by the lender. B, the lender will want to ensure that no right of residence is created. I think that's the answer, isn't it? B. C, They'll extend Clare's waiting period for SME. That's nonsense. D, the lender will collect rent to offset the arrears. That's as mortgagee in possession. Quite a clever answer, that one. It's not, because they're not in possession. They can repossess the property, the lender, and become basically a great big landlord. And they can have a tenant in there, and they can collect the rent to pay the mortgage if they wanted to do that. But we haven't got to repossession stage yet, so D's not right. So the answer number 6 is B. Okay, nice one, Z's one. Number 7. If Clare, with the lender's agreement, surrenders her endowment policy and switches to capital repayment, what is the key disadvantage for her? That's an interesting question. Again, before you look at the answers, okay, she's looking to surrender the whole endowment policy now and switch to capital repayment. If she does that, which is fine, she's going to have to switch to capital and interest, which is going to cost her more per month. But also, she has no more life cover anymore because the unit-linked endowment gave her life cover. So they're the main problems, the key disadvantages. So let's see what options we've got. Is it A, an income tax liability could arise? No. You see lots of red herrings, aren't there, ready to come down? The answer there is D. Her mortgage payments would increase and alternative life cover may need to be arranged. What I did there is I figured out the answer before I looked at any of the options. That's what you should do. Don't look at the options all the time. Figure out the answer sometimes if you can from the question. Great stuff. Number 8 then for you. Let's get into our final few, get into the final furlong. Number 8. If Clare chose to keep the endowment policy, how could a potential shortfall be minimised? That's an interesting one, isn't it? So if she keeps the endowment policy, she's going to have to pay either more into the endowment or maybe take out another endowment or convert to part and part interest only capital interest. But let's see what the options are now. A, extend the mortgage term. Well, she can't because she's got interest only. B, link part of the loan to an equity ISA. Well, she could do, I suppose. She'd have to pay into that. Not a bad option. C, convert part of the loan to a repayment basis. That's a better answer, isn't it? D, convert the endowment policy to a unitised with profits basis. That would make no difference whatsoever, if you could even do that. It's just a different type of endowment, that one. B is not a bad answer, but it's not a guarantee, whereas C is a guarantee. If you convert part of the loan to a repayment basis, then you're going to guarantee that bit gets paid off. That's easy, isn't it? Number 9. The results of the valuation will indicate to their lender that at this stage, okay, they've had the place valued by the estate agent, haven't they, at 150. So the results of the valuation will indicate to the lender. So again, look at the stem of the question carefully there. And the answer there is B. The society's interests remain protected. The other options there are just not relevant at all. And the last question, number 10. Once the lender became aware that the account was in arrears, it was required to write to them within, and you've got a number of working days here, business days, which is a working day, of course. Now this is an MCOB question. You either know this or you don't, and the answer to this one is 15 business days. It just is. So there you can see the answer is C, 15 business days. They must write to her once they've aware that she's in arrears. So as you can see, therefore, we've got quite a few questions there on that one, which is interesting, that last one. A pure MCOB question. You either know the answer or you don't really, so it's always good to learn your MCOBs when it comes to it. And that ends the case study of Clare and Nick. Hope that's been useful.